Let's begin this newscast with the SCO Summit as all roads lead to Kyrgyzstan. Leaders of 8 countries, Russia, China, India, Pakistan and 4 Central Asian countries, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyz Republic and Kazakhstan will be meeting at the Kyrgyz capital of Bishkek for the SCO Summit today. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be leaving for Bishkek any time now. He is expected to depart in any time from now. The Prime Minister said that he will be discussing global security situation, multilateral economic cooperation, people-to-people exchanges and topical issues of international and regional importance. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is flying to Bishkek via Oman instead of Pakistan. This means that Prime Minister Modi will not be using the Pakistani airspace. Pakistan earlier said that it will be making an exception for Prime Minister Modi and that it will be opening its airspace for Air India, one as a goodwill gesture. Now, remember, Pakistan fully closed its airspace on the 26th of February this year after Indian Air Force carried out a surgical strike on Jaish terror camp in Balakot. Since then, Indian flights are allowed to use only 2 air routes over Pakistan. Both of these routes pass through the southern part of the country. Prime Minister Modi is expected to reach Bishkek around 1:30 p.m. Indian time, after which, along with the President of Kyrgyzstan, he will be inaugurating a textile exhibition. Prime Minister Modi will later hold bilateral meetings with the leaders of China and Russia. Indian Prime Minister also tweeted emphasizing the importance of this summit. He said, and I quote, "After the SCO summit, I shall be holding extensive talks with President Jeenbekov of the Kyrgyz Republic as a part of a bilateral visit. I will jointly address the first meeting of India-Kyrgyz Business Forum and endeavor to promote commercial linkages between our nations." So the SCO Forum is going to be a very interesting one. According to China, this will also be a forum which will not be targeting any one nation when it comes to counter-terrorism measures. And just ahead of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit this week, without naming Pakistan, China sent out a message to the member nations that SCO is not a forum to target any one nation. China's Vice Foreign Minister had addressed a press conference ahead of the Chinese President Xi Jinping attending the 19th SCO Summit. Also important to talk about what the SCO Summit is, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, because let's not forget India and Pakistan became members of the SCO in 2017. And for more of a perspective and some latest updates, I'm also joined in by Siddhant Sibal, our principal correspondent, who's been closely tracking the SCO Summit from Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan. A very good morning to you, Siddhant. It's indeed going to be a very happening morning for you. What's interesting, of course, and is making headlines at this moment is the fact that the Indian Prime Minister is not going to be using the Pakistani airspace, since we all know that he's all set to depart in some time from now. What, of course, we are left wondering why had India requested for a permit in the first place?
Well, of course, that is the big focus just ahead of the SCO Summit, because the decision came on the eve of SCO Summit yesterday, and now the Indian Prime Minister will be using a different route, using the Mumbai, Oman, Iran and Central Asia route. Remember the closure of airspace by Pakistan since 27th of February, since their military misadventure by attacking the Indian installations in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, the military installation in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. They have closed their airspace, and by and large, it has been termed as a policy of obstructionism and a politicization of a matter, because by closure of the airspace, it's not only Indians who are getting impacted, the world community, in a sense, people who would like to go from Europe to Southeast Asia, or number of Afghans who are living in India are getting impacted. In fact, I spoke to a number of students, Indian students here in Kyrgyzstan, because Kyrgyzstan has a lot of Indian students doing their medical education here in this country. country, they are massively impacted. In fact, they're saying that they had to cancel their holidays back home primarily because of the closure of the airspace, because number of airlines such as Astana Airlines and other airlines have closed their operations to New Delhi, to India, because of the closure of airspace. But by and large, a strong message sent by India when it comes to not use of the airspace of the Pakistani airspace.
I'm just about to come to that, Siddhant, since you rightly mentioned that this is a very important message being sent out to Pakistan from India. There was much being talked about a face-off between India and Pakistan, and that, the heads of both the states will be coming face-to-face at the SCO summit. Should we expect no pull aside at all?
Well, as of now, the signals from New Delhi clearly show that there is not going to be any kind of meeting or perhaps the pull aside also with the Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan. When it comes to formal structure between both the leaders, there is on-camera confirmation by the Ministry of External Affairs that there will not be any such meeting. And if you look at the messaging since the new government took charge, or since the re-election of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, yes, the Pakistani Prime Minister has called him, congratulated him. He's written a number of letters also. But the response from New Delhi is lukewarm. That is primarily because of the sponsorship of terrorism from Pakistan to India. We saw attack happening in the Indian state of Jammu Kashmir yesterday itself. So clearly, in the shadow of Pulwama, it is very difficult for New Delhi to engage with Pakistan, with Pakistan continuing its old policy that has been destabilizing the entire region. We also know that when it comes to the entire region or meeting with the world leaders, there will be 5 main bilaterals. These will be bilateral with Chinese President Xi Jinping, with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with Iran's president. That's important because we know that India is now reducing its oil imports from Iran.
Right.
And then, of course, the president of Afghanistan. India is playing an important role in the country. And finally, the Kyrgyz president.
All right, so it's interesting that you mentioned that there will be so many bilaterals for India over there, but none with Pakistan. And it's going to be, you're right in saying that, there has been a very strong message sent out, especially after the Pulwama attack. And while we speak, Siddhant, there are live shots arriving. As we can see, the Indian Prime Minister's convoy is there. We're in full paraphernalia. And in some time from now, the Indian Prime Minister will be boarding his flight to Bishkek. Remember, we just informed you that he will not be using the Pakistani airspace, which India had earlier requested for. The Prime Minister's flight will now be taking a longer route. It will now be flying over Oman, Iran and Central Asian countries to reach Bishkek, where he's scheduled to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit today and tomorrow. And it's important to note that this is India's way of sending out a very strong message to Pakistan that terror and talks do not go hand in hand, especially after what happened in Pulwama. And remember, Pakistan had shut its airspace on 26th of February, soon after the Indian Air Force attacked terror camps in Balakot. And there you have it, the Indian Prime Minister making his way across to Air India 1, boarding his flight, all awake and looking quite confident and excited for the upcoming SCO Summit, which is, of course, going to open a whole new window for India. Let me also bring in Siddhant on this note. Siddhant, India, Russia, China are going to be uniting on this platform of the SCO. And I'm sure that, after defense and terrorism, the other aspect that needs to be addressed, of course, is the rising protectionism across the globe and, needless to say, the trade war that's going on.
Well, rightly said, when the Indian side will be speaking here, focus, of course, not only be on counter-terrorism, but will be also on trade, on connectivity. Remember, when it comes to trade, India is expected to put a strong stance because remember, it's just not China versus the US. India was also facing the heat from Washington, and India is expected to strongly raise the issue, especially of WTO, a body it seems to be under pressure because of Washington clearly not playing by the rules. But by and large, this alliance of the East will be used by India, especially to increase its engagement with Central Asian countries. We know there are 8 members in this organization: India, Pakistan, China, Russia, and the 4 Central Asian countries barring Turkmenistan. And there will be also a bilateral component of the entire visit. That will be a state visit of the Indian Prime Minister to this country. He will be given full honors, and he will be having a lot of bilaterals with the Kyrgyz president. In fact, one of the engagements today is an informal dinner with the Kyrgyz president that will take place on the first day itself. Remember, the Kyrgyz president was called for the oath-taking ceremony of Narendra Modi on 30th of May at Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Right. There are some very interesting aspects to the India-Kyrgyzstan relationship. This relationship also includes the student exchange, and I'm sure we will discover more after this bilateral has taken place. For now, let me address the India-China relationship at the moment. It's a very tricky one, Siddhant, one where, we have also witnessed India boycotting the BRI summit for a second time in a row. And this time we all know that today the Indian Prime Minister will be meeting the Chinese president for a bilateral. How could China actually push India to come to the discussion table when it comes to BRI? Do you think India will be able to fight the Silk Route?
Well, when it comes to BRI, it's a strict no from New Delhi, primarily because the Belt and Road Initiative, part of it is the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Yes, Beijing wants India on that connectivity program, but New Delhi cannot be part of it because, remember, this connectivity project passes through a territory which is occupied by Pakistan, and in a sense, if New Delhi participates, it's giving a legitimacy to Pakistan's claim. So clearly, when it comes to the entire project, it is a no for New Delhi. But if you look at the entire projects by New Delhi in the west and the east, it is all inclusive. It is involving the country. While when it comes to the Chinese projects, they are kind of projects which have been just being thrusted on the countries, and we know the debt crisis associated with them, whether it is China, whether it's Central Asian countries. Well, in fact, China has invested a lot in this country, this very country, and there have been problems of debt crisis being reported all across Central Asia. There have been cases in Africa, but India's connectivity projects have been lauded by Central Asian countries, Afghanistan, Iran. The Chabar project is a project which is kind of an inclusive, involves all the countries, and we spoke to a number of envoys, whether it's the Kyrgyz envoy in New Delhi, Uzbek envoy in Delhi, or the Indian envoy here in this country. All have said that Chabar has a crucial role to make sure that the Central Asian countries are connected to India, and then of course India has its connectivity project towards the Kaladan multimodal project. But when it comes to India-China relationship, it's a very, very complex relationship. There are border disputes, but there is the trade component as well, and also these are two large countries with different political system, but as power moves towards Asia, these two countries will be under focus, and how relationship between the two countries will be governed by their leaders. Remember last year what happened when the informal summit took place. After that, the Indian and the Chinese leadership met for 3 times. This time also, the Chinese president is expected to come to India for the informal summit, the second informal summit.
Right, and there's already been a lot of back and forth between India and China, so it will be interesting to see how this relationship pans out. The SCO, of course, will be throwing a lot of light on not only India and China, but India, Russia, Kyrgyzstan, and of course India and Afghanistan too. And as we all said that, India had been focusing on terrorism and defense in 2018. Let's see if Prime Minister Modi is able to strike that much needed economic cooperation between India, China and Russia during this ongoing global trade war. Thank you so much, Siddhant, for bringing us all the latest. We will keep coming back to you as and when the Indian Prime Minister lands in Bishkek. For now, thank you so much.
The 19th Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is all set to begin here in Kyrgyz capital Bishkek from 13th to 14th. Focus will be on many global and regional issues such as trade, connectivity and counter-terror. Follow me, Sudhan Sippal, for all the latest and live updates from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, only on WION.